Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Roll 2DMs. This is session 5. My name is Josue Melocrit. I am joined here by none other than Solomon Solomon. Solomon, how are you doing?
The one and only. I'm doing good.
I am
It's pretty
excited.
chilly outside.
It is.
We got some weird weather this week, honestly.
It's like cold but really
Yeah.
bright out.
I remember like Wednesday was it? I think it was like sunny outside. I had a class, and yeah, like was Wednesday with the random snow.
I think so.
Yeah. No, that was crazy.
Yeah, so thank you all for joining us. Today we will be talking about something a little bit more lax, a little bit more low key. We're actually going to be talking about downtime in D&D games. So for those of you who don't know, a lot of games, including some modules, utilize downtime, which is kind of a nondescript extended period of time in a D&D campaign that allows for a lot of different things to happen. That allows for um, anywhere from like a couple of days worth of things happening.
Some campaigns have like years.
So like months and years, literally.
For like high level play, I've heard people do that.
So it's basically an opportunity, almost for like, I wouldn't call it filler. It's more so like any task that might take a bit of time, or any sort of character development that might take a bit longer than just, a session or two. So that things like that can happen. Also, you'll notice me messing with the mouse. Unfortunately, our usual tech assistant is out sick
Tech
today.
master,
Wizard,
tech
lord.
the one and only Ibrahim. Yes.
He is out today, so I will be controlling all of the scenes for the stream today from very far away.
We have a long mouse.
Very long mouse.
We have a long wired mouse it's gonna do the job.
We gotta make it happen.
It's gotta fit.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll feel better soon and can join us for the next one. But in any case, I think we should roll into the first sort of conversation. Obviously, this might be a relatively new topic to a lot of people, so definitely if you're in the chat and have any questions, feel free to hit us with those.
Yeah, for sure.
We did announce this session a little bit late, so I apologize.
Both of us were a bit busy with just general stuff. I would say it's mainly on my end of forgetting to send out the poll in time, and then forgetting to do the follow up poll. But stuff happens.
Yep. So
we'll pull through. Yeah.
We're gaming either way.
Midterms,
So school's getting crazy finally. So just to kind of start off, I did want to chat a little bit about when it's appropriate to use downtime. Should you be using downtime in your games at all?
Yeah.
I know people that haven't run downtime at all in their D&D. I know people that love utilizing downtime relatively often to accomplish a wide variety of things. So it really depends on the context of your campaign, but just in general, I guess we'll go kind of zoomed out first, and then we'll talk about like campaign specifics.
Oh, so, no, for sure.
In terms of campaign types and campaign styles, what do you where do you think downtime kind of falls in different types of campaigns?
I would say like downtime, in terms of like its usability and general like utility for both the DM and players, it can honestly fit in almost every single type of game, except for maybe like a high octane like session to session combat type of game, because you can really do downtime at any point if you have an opportunity to have like a break between combat and encounters and delving, like for instance you're in a city, like the kind of point between going into the sewers to destroy this cult, or like that point, like it can fit lots of spots, or maybe the party is preparing to take on this like ultimate evil, and you as a DM can give them the chance to go shopping without worrying about getting kidnapped, or like without any risk. It's kind of that more kind of relaxing, and generally it gives people the opportunity to explore stuff that they won't have time for in a standard high octane high action game.
For sure. I would have to agree. I think that the type of games where it is appropriate do tend towards games that need it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I think it fits anywhere where you feel that the characters in your game would benefit from, as you're saying, something that's a little bit slower, something that might take a longer period of time. Because, especially things that are like preparatory, right? Like we know, for example, wizards can actually get a lot of
Oh
use
yeah,
out of
spending
non-combat,
money.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, spending money, making
Yeah.
money, spending money.
Copying spells, buying spell scrolls, getting developing their wizards, spell book, are stuff that I would say like it's very much kind of a downtime activity. Sure, it can happen in like regular kind of before you long rest, you spend like a couple hours each day and stuff. But having the ability to do like a straight block of 8 hours of just doing stuff for you yourself is something that players do desire sometimes, and can be beneficial. And it also gives some people the opportunity to not like, you don't have to be extremely active during the downtime. You can just say, oh, my character would just go to the spa,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know have a good meal maybe.
Yeah, it is a really, really open-ended thing. And again, you can utilize the if you end up giving your players downtime, for example. And I guess like we'll get into exactly what we like doing with downtime. But just in general, you can utilize downtime differently for different PCs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that one's pretty simple and straightforward to answer. And I think anyone who hasn't used downtime in the past, this might be a very viable option if it's not something you considered. If you were ever like, oh man, like there's like a big chunk of important combat coming up soon. I kind of want a little bit of time to either develop a side plot or develop a character or let a character literally train and have.
Yeah.
You can literally stick a training arc in there.
Yeah, no,
if
for
that's
sure.
What you're into.
And also, like, I feel like you just mentioned a good point. You can perhaps give you the DM more time to write your boss fights.
Exactly.
You kind of put in a bit more downtime before the boss fight to give you time to fully kind of like polish and like clearly design and like, I guess, well craft a good encounter.
Yeah.
Gives you that breathing space.
Exactly. So yeah, if it calls for it. So for those of you
Yeah,
who are,
Xanathar's
who are
good, yeah.
experienced with it, you're probably familiar with where you might stick it. Thanks for the suggestion,
Kobe, yes.
Kobe, in the chat. Xanathar's guide also has some interesting
Yes.
basic things for downtime.
Yeah. Honestly, it's a pretty good framework in general.
Mhm.
And lots of the rules they're very much variant rules that's up to you to modify and tweak to your own like pacing and benefits, but lots of them are like really good like
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah, yeah, basic groundwork. So yeah, campaigns that need it, you can really do without it. And that's something that I did want to
Yeah.
mention because for me personally, when I say there's going to be a bit of downtime, downtime is oftentimes very, very brief, and it almost just like lets different people in the party to kind of take the reins and be like, I want to do this right now.
Like a side quest.
Exactly. So I utilize downtime less in the traditional sense of like there's an extended period of time where people can, say, I'm going to read this thing or I'm going to look into this thing. It's more just when I say that, I like it being a catalyst for, oh, this means I can go do whatever I want now.
Yeah.
Like I'm not constricted by, and again, my intent is never to make the players feel constricted to a plot.
Yeah. But sometimes like thematically.
Yeah, exactly.
momentum.
Sometimes people feel like they're pigeonholed into
Yeah.
the campaign, right? And so when they want to do whatever other exploratory thing, maybe they want to explore something with the character specifically that's completely unrelated to the plot, to the world, whatever, or to at least what's been presented in the world thus far. Downtime is a great place where I just say, here's downtime, and usually people will be like, this is the side thing that I've been interested in exploring and talking about. Am I able to do this? And usually I'm pretty open to kind of whatever people want to do with their downtime.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot you can do with it. There's tons and tons of options.
Yeah, no, like I remember you can even have very simple in terms of like mechanics. The cleric can try to talk to their god, the warlock to their patron, the sorcerer to themselves, maybe the wizard to their book. You can like almost every single person can have the fighter can maybe gain an extra weapon proficiency or maybe invest and go on this kind of like blacksmithing side plot. And who knows, maybe you can turn that kind of like side quest to improve your armor into going into the elemental plane of fire and city of brass and doing we had like Kobe's in the chat. You know what I'm talking about. It's you can fully push a full-fledged decent story from like a minor side quest of like getting this one like fetch quest item.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess kind of a weird ordering, but I think we can probably just start chatting mostly about, because really putting where should you put downtime is again up to the DM's discretion. You can use it, you can kind of not. But let's talk about what you actually do during downtime. So we've named a couple of examples, and I think here might be the probably one of the best places for kind of anecdote,
Yeah,
of just like talking about things we've seen, things that people might recommend, um, things that either you've running your games or that have been run for you as a player, just in general.
for sure.
Kind of a general overview of some of the possibilities that exist.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say if I can go ahead and like add some, for me personally, like as a DM, you can use downtime for instance, like right now, one of my parties, they're kind of gearing up and kind of setting up to, take on this like boss, this like kind of that's supposed to be the campaign, kind of like ending, kind of like big bad and stuff. And I've given them a thing of like one of the like kind of like I guess quest giving NPCs have like very clearly said you have about a month to do this. You have this amount of money I'll provide you as resource to benefit you, because you are going to be saving the city to an extent, so you have some money, and and then the players just let them go wild. I guess in this case you do benefit from having the players be in an existing world that has established outlets for downtime.
Right.
Like having you already established that there's this black market that you can buy stuff from. There's these clerics that could possibly assist you in some manner of like enchantment, and generally the players know to an extent where to go to get certain stuff. You're not dropping them to downtime in the middle of a desert. You're dropping them into a place that they can do stuff.
Yeah.
At the very they know that you can dig enough in that desert to get something and spend that
Right.
downtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I guess that's the key thing, to have that be available. And in regards of like ways you can do it, perhaps Xanathars has a very good example of gaining proficiency in a skill, which
Yeah.
is a big thing that lots of people, it's a very simple task that you can develop and be varied into the flavor that's just not not the simple mechanical, you spend X amount of hours to gain this proficiency. You can mark it as proficient in your like character sheet.
Mhm.
It's, you can mark it as if you're gonna go Arcana, you go to a library. You buy a book in regards of Dummy's Guide to Arcana, and you start reading through that. You can have proficiency first. Have proficiency is personally like a thing that I feel like is really good in showing progression.
Right.
Because it does give you that early like reward for like investing in downtime.
Yeah.
And kind of a glimpse of what's to come to an extent.
For sure.
And then like you can have them further develop that, or for a fighter, or like for anyone athletics, maybe you go to like the fighters guild, or like a guild that is known for highly combative and just generally good fighting people.
Right.
They can teach you to be more athletic. They run you through the gym. They teach you how to do deadlifts, how to do burpees,
Right.
proper form and that stuff. And then you spend your time working on that stuff. And
Yeah.
I feel like proficiencies, there's lots of stuff you can do, and it's very much depending on the person and how you want to flavor them. And it's very much kind of free form in that way.
Right.
If you don't want to, you can just have them read a book.
Mm-hmm.
Just read a simple book and that's it. And it works. It's still like it's rewarding. The players do feel like they're learning, and you can maybe give them some tidbits and stuff about the world, perhaps while they're reading through,
Right.
which is useful. I would say making and buying, selling magical items is a really good one. Like
For
just
sure.
developing magic items, and like being able to have, if you have someone who can make them, making them and then selling them is a very good source of money. And also just making them for the party itself. Like making like a set of sending stones is really useful for a party that doesn't have any way of communicating otherwise.
Right.
If you have one person who can do sending, and you want to have like multiple lines of communication, you're better off making something like that to solve that problem.
Right.
So it's really just give the players opportunity. Essentially, you're just giving the players like almost like a toolbox, and having them pick which tools they want to use.
Right.
And develop and to solve their own problems, because in most times downtime serves as a way of solving issues or satiating desires for the players. Whether that be they need more money, they need this person wants to get this thing. It's that way of kind of doing that without having to get it too deep into the story, and too deep into, you don't have to make every point of character development
Like an
central and integral
interaction.
to the
Yeah, with
story,
the story. I agree, and I think obviously time depending. The reason
Yeah.
why I think downtime is cool is because, as you're saying, it doesn't always have to be an interaction. Nampi mentioned something interesting that I'm kind of gonna mix in, because there's kind of two sides to that coin, right? You can say you've got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with it? And if someone says I want to train with the Fighters Guild, for example,
You
to
could do
gain
some NPC,
gain
yeah.
half proficiency in athleticism, right? You can either say, okay, is that what you're gonna do for the whole 2 weeks? Yeah, okay. Time skip. I'll
Yeah.
go ask someone
Maybe
else what
roll
they're
a couple
doing.
d20s to see how
Yeah,
fast you do it.
see how, or
Yeah.
whether you like if you could roll nat 20s, you maybe get full
Faster, yeah.
proficiency or something. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
that. The other side, and this is what I'm gonna get to is non-piece
Yeah.
comment, and just in general, you can also use downtime for full interactions
For
with
sure.
the world. It doesn't need you don't need to completely separate it, right?
No, for
It's
sure.
kind of like the discussion of if someone's gonna go to the shop to buy, whatever.
Yeah.
You can do it two different ways, right? You can go and say, okay, I'll take the gold out. You now have this
Yeah.
item.
Show them the spreadsheet.
Or do you want to
Yeah.
go meet this person? Do you want to go talk to them? Do you have questions that go beyond just
Yeah.
I'm looking for a sword? So
No,
that's
exactly.
exactly right. So if they're gonna go to the guild, maybe you've got a little NPC sitting off on the side that you haven't introduced yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't exactly fit there, but then, or maybe that's not where you had them, but it kind of fits there.
It fits now. Yeah.
And you're willing to like stick it in and start kind of adding intrigue, because again, it's something that happens in downtime can be separated from the story, but it doesn't.
It can also
have
lead
to be.
into.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It can also like loop back, or essentially kind of like you think you're gonna be starting out in like a diverging path, but then you realize, oh no, you're just hitting another point in the story.
Yeah.
But through a different like pathway.
Yeah, and downtime is also a good time when, because I've noticed that a lot of parties do this.
Yeah.
A lot of parties don't, but a lot of parties that I've kind of played with and interacted with, they really like the idea of gathering allies, like
Yes.
collecting allies.
Yes. The shonen approach.
Yeah, it's exactly, the friendship beats everything.
I love that. I love that concept.
And
Yeah.
so you can you can give them that option during downtime of, do you want to talk to people in the city to just like
Yeah.
start getting them interested in your cause. And that is a great use
No,
for
for sure,
downtime.
yeah.
And again, the same thing, two sides to the same coin. You can say, okay, do you want to like go through and talk to a bunch of people? I will as a DM act like the city folk, or you're just trying to be optimal about this as possible. I'll let you roll, charisma and see how many people you got interested.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And 2
yeah.
weeks pass where you're doing that. That's also totally cool.
No, exactly. I remember like that was very much another thing that the party did, like, in terms of downtime, was they sought out to gather the support of like the guilds in the city to, help them and, provide resources and stuff. And, it's been working out to an extent. They do kind of a mini side quest, I guess, maybe convince the like gunsmithing guild, through a test of marksmanship. Or go to the church and convince them via a show of faith or a display of like a relic, perhaps, or to that extent. And or sometimes even the funniest one I did was like the Swordsmaster Guild, which is just this like group of pretentious like fencers and stuff. They also run the homeowners association for the richest district. So I had them, and the fact is that the party was also in that district. So I was like, yeah, no. So we received multiple complaints that your house has been bombed twice. This has caused severe issues to the surrounding neighborhoods, and a piece of shrapnel got embedded into Miss like this old lady's Shih Tzu,
Mm-hmm.
and and then comes a different kind of thing. You don't have to make every single encounter be well aligned with like a test of skill or stuff. Sometimes we just want you to be more quiet and respectful of your neighbors and abide by these new green building rules.
Right.
Reduce emissions, buy a dumpster, like stuff like that.
And
it
I'm,
works.
I'm glad you mentioned, funny enough, like talking about homeowners.
Yeah.
actually
Really?
got me thinking. Well, when
Base
people have
development.
bases,
Yes.
Yeah, when people have
Yes.
bases, I'm not gonna RP them sweeping the floor or like ripping out floorboards
Yes.
to like change the floor. For as an example, or if there's concrete, like I'm not gonna say, all right, roll a d20 to put down 10 pieces of wood for your floor. Like that doesn't make any sense. And in fact, a lot of stuff that's like a lot of monotonous, mundane activity that they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
That is a
Montage
perfect
it.
time for downtime. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
basically montaging. I'll be like,
Yeah.
all right, you guys want to fix the front of your roof that got fucking blown off by a fireball. You guys can work on it for a week, and during that,
Buy the
you've
wood,
got
you know,
downtime. Yeah. Is there anything you want to do during? But during the day, they are working on this for
Yeah.
a week, the whole party.
Hire some contractors, maybe, buy some
Exactly.
furniture.
Yeah.
They can do
So-
that in downtime.
Going back to like the utility, right? Like that's again a very specific example. Where do you use it? Use it in situations like that. where it seems like it's going to take an unnecessary amount of time and energy
That
that's
takes
going to
momentum.
draw
Yeah.
away from the momentum of
Yeah.
exactly of your campaign. If you just happen to have something, maybe like the closing of a story arc or the closing of a story beat, the last thing you want to do is
Yeah.
bore the heck out of your party with essentially filler. Again, maybe that's what they're into. Maybe
Make
they
the
want
filler
to take a
optional.
break.
That's
Yeah,
kind of downtime to an extent.
exactly.
You make the filler stuff optional because some people enjoy that stuff.
Hmm.
It's nice not having to fight, like demonic rat folk like each day, and not having to be in near death situations, both for you as a player and for a character. I imagine also,
Right.
if I was in that kind of world where like I faced near death each day, I want to take a breather a couple of days. Have a beach episode.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
like just relax. Like have the spa episode. You know,
And again, you can run it however you want. It doesn't ever have to be downtime.
It's not
I
necessary,
say
yeah.
stuff about like mundane tasks, right? But like, how easy is it to say, all right, they're fixing their house? Like they haven't spent that long in the base, right? They're gonna spend the next 5 days fixing it. If I know my party and I know that they like doing wacky, quirky things that are like outside of like the serious,
Yeah.
what I usually run, which are more serious campaigns. Like I'll stick a ghost story in there.
Yep.
Like after spending a couple days, you notice like after the first 2 days, things are kind of moving. Areas are cleaner than you would expect them to be the
Yeah.
next day.
No, for
And like
sure.
I'll stick a haunted room in there, and like that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
That can be a whole thing. So it need not be downtime. That downtime
You
is
can add
kind
some
of,
spice to it,
yeah,
have like a fairy, maybe have a fairy dragon nested in like the wreckage or something,
exactly.
because that's stuff that you can work. It's a fantasy world, you're the DM, you can place something there that wasn't there before, and the players won't know really until you tell them.
Yeah, and again, it depends on how much they want to interact.
Yeah.
I'm happy to stick full plot points into my
Same.
downtime
No, same, yeah.
if I think it fits. It's probably like the most open ended, I think, version of
It's the
running
sandbox,
D&D. Yeah, exactly. So other things that you can do during downtime, obviously develop NPCs
Yes.
is a great suggestion. Another thing that you can do, I'm gonna kind of go back to your initial point, and I think that's a great way to use downtime is offering people character development where they don't know, because I feel like when you're creating your stat page, right?
Yeah.
You start to kind of define your character based on some of the stats you pick.
Yeah, like I'm good at investigation. I might be like perceptive in that.
Exactly.
regards.
And so that's totally fine. If you want to, put together your character sheet and then retroactively build from it, that's a totally
Yeah.
valid way to build a character. However, I like to let my players know, and this is often when downtime comes in, I let them know, hey, like, you don't need to have your 3 starting proficiencies and that's it, and then you only get one after your class reaches X level.
Oh yeah.
Do you
Or if you
want
take
to
the skills
learn
feats
about
from
something,
Tasha's.
or did something happen in the campaign where you want to develop a different skill? And again, downtime is perfect for that because you can just blast through 2 weeks of montaging, and then boom, they learned a skill, and now they have like maybe an additional backstory beat.
Yeah, no, for
Where if you're in the campaign and they're like, oh, you read about this during your down, and again, they probably you never told them, they didn't have to be completely descript like that, but maybe they make a roll and you say during your downtime you were in the library in that town where you were having
You
your
remember
downtime,
seeing this
whatever.
wizard, or mentions
or,
of this
or
missing
reading
person.
a specific book, or
Yeah.
or mentions of a specific person. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Developing the character beyond what's on the character sheet to start.
Give them something extra,
Mhm.
like it's and the thing is also, I feel like another thing just from a player point of view is downtime gives you the option to further flesh out, like just general, like why am I taking this proficiency, like that's also stuff that's always very interesting. Like why am I, like if you're like a fighter and stuff, why are you taking proficiency in nature? Is it perhaps, are you interested in investing further into druids, or are you kind of interested in dipping into that kind of mindset, or there might be some like reason in character, which kind of is I feel like an interesting mechanism just to use in general. And I feel like also another thing I didn't really mention is just you can use it to flesh out the world in general. Just have your players explore and kind of venture through in this world you have, and they don't have to be following a main plot line. Those side quests are really good ways of fleshing out certain factions, districts, areas. Maybe they go and their downtime thing is they stake out in this area, and they kind of learn more about this area, and they learn that the people here tend to be mainly like shifters, or like more of the like so-called like monstrous races,
Right.
and then they realize there might be some tension there, and they may have some sort of like conflict with the city guards, perhaps.
Right.
Like you can always add those tidbits and just kind of like snippets that give your world a more lived in feel.
Yeah,
which people enjoy to the
definitely.
most degree.
Yeah, I'd say like you said it earlier. It's very
Yeah,
much like the sandbox
yeah.
where
See the
the
sights, you know.
yeah, you can do so much with it. When we say downtime too, I think there's like multiple contexts that you could consider it. Like there's a standard like time skip almost.
Yeah,
But a lot of times downtime is kind of when you just open up your world, and that's weird to say, right? But like
yeah,
we when we're running these campaigns, we do a lot of as DMs, we do a lot of writing, we do a lot of preparation. We kind of have a place where we intend the story to
yeah,
go. Whether the players follow it or how they get there is like an entirely different story. But especially from again, this is just with interactions with DMs. I know
yeah,
a lot of us like to write things that are either character arcs or story arcs. It's never just like one continuous like you started your campaign here and you are going here and we are not stopping till we get there.
yeah.
Um, a lot of times, there are moments where there's like it almost feels like an end waiting for the next start. And I
For
think
sure,
that's
yeah.
where you open up your world. You gave your players a taste of the specific experience that you were trying to give them with your writing, and now you open it up and they have a world that now feels a little bit more lived in, that they have lived in themselves,
Yeah, no,
and
for
now
sure.
they can explore it more freely. I think that's my favorite use of downtime, is
I
just
do agree.
making them feel like, all right, like I ran you through the story, you guys can go straight to the next thing, but I'm gonna let you guys peruse if you guys care to.
Honestly, I just thought of a fairly good example. Is I kind of you can see it as being like on a train station, like on the tracks, and the main story is you going from stop to stop and kind of being in the train. You see the scenery around you. You have the option of next stop you can just hop off and spend half an hour on that stop, and you can see the scenery
Right.
that you got a preview in through the main kind of like track.
Yeah.
And kind of that whole way of seeing it is kind of a beneficial way to visualize it, I guess. Is just you are the train conductor, as well as you are part of you are the train to an
Right.
extent.
Yeah, yeah.
And you drive the players from point to point using the tracks that you laid out, but you can also design the train stops and the surrounding locales
Right.
if the players want to explore it. They can totally just sit in the train and wait till the next stop, and they don't leave that stop.
Right.
They just go to the next like location, and you advance the plot, and it's fun.
Yeah.
You're still going to your destination, but it's just about the fact that some people like to go outside on each stop and kind of see what's the sights around. Some
Yeah.
people don't, and it's totally valid.
And I think downtime, especially the way that you described it, is great.
Yeah,
And I think downtime is actually really important for DMs that put a lot of time into fleshing out their world building.
for sure. Yeah,
Because, right, like if I'm gonna introduce like in the main plot line, right, I'm gonna introduce some NPC or an enemy or like a gray character, right? Someone who's not like
Yeah.
he's gonna help you now, but he's kind of an asshole and you can tell.
like when is
As
he
an
gonna betray you?
example. Yeah, exactly. Like if I write out, he's part of this guild. This is where he came from. Like, very basic NPC development. Like beyond the stat block, like what organization is he a part of? Why is he doing what he's doing? Right. Those
Yeah.
are like the two big things that I like to point out in my own notes to myself. It would kind of suck if I just like wrote some random organization and then I went back and did background writing and no one ever hears about the rest of the organization.
Exactly.
They're just like, oh, there was that one guy that was on that organization, but like, who cares? We're never gonna.
He's
talk
from
to
the
them.
Bleeding Hands, or
Yeah,
like Yeah.
exactly. But then when you open it up, right? Maybe one of the characters
Side
got
quests.
attached
Yeah.
to one of those PCs. You end up in a town, and they're like, I want to learn more about this exact guild
Yeah.
because I remember this symbol and I remember the person. I'm either gonna try and find them or the people that he trained with, and I want to learn more about them, right? Like,
And you have this whole nice side plot. That's
yeah,
like,
exactly. You can drop like those little snippets that aren't necessarily super important in the main plot line can be points of intrigue that your players can explore during that downtime. Whereas normally while they're running through the plot, like it does feel, and again, we've seen this happen in games for sure, where it does get kind of awkward, right? That like people are like running through the campaign and there's like a very pivotal point, and then you have a player that's like, hey, I remember hearing about this one. Can I literally go do anything else right now? And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Which again is totally valid, but it's kind of an awkward point to do that. Like, especially if you're like, for
It take you
example,
off
in
guard
the
for
middle
the
of
first
like
couple times.
a
Yeah.
major like social encounter, for example, as like as a
Yeah,
totally
no, for
random
sure.
example. If your whole party's in a very strong social interaction,
Yeah.
maybe you're arguing to a court or something. You probably don't want one of your players to be like, there's this mercenary we met like
You don't get in legal
5
trouble
sessions
when in
back
legal
in the
courts.
campaign. I'm kind of interested. I want to go find them.
Yeah.
Fuck whatever's actually happening here. They're totally valid. They can do that, right? It's kind of annoying, but they can do that. It's a lot easier to not only avoid that from happening, but also give players the opportunity to go and do that and dig with something like downtime. So they finish right at the court, whoever they're pandering to. After that ends, you say, all right, you guys have a couple days to explore the city. You guys don't have to you guys aren't obligated to do anything. That is the perfect moment for someone. And again, this is an advice to players in general, because as a DM, we know that it's annoying, and you might not know that it's annoying to us. You guys can go explore whatever, do whatever, but kind of be mindful of like what the rest of your party is doing, especially in relation to the campaign. And know that if
Clear
there's other
communication,
plots you want to explore. Again, we'll probably say this at least once every single session, but
I feel like this should be a counter, just like talk to your DM, talk to your players talk to your DM. Yeah. Try to be clear about what you want and what you don't want, and that's usually the best way of solving these issues.
Because be honest, because as a DM, it's also we mentioned we like playing it in arcs. It's also really easy, and I've done it before, even though I'm an arc type writer, where like I'll just like kind of get barreling really like fast and get really like
breakneck speed. You're advancing, you're leveling so fast.
Yeah, what is
I did that.
Tunnel vision, that's what I'm talking about. Or thinking of you don't want to tunnel vision so hard, and then if you don't talk to your players, you don't know like, hey, there was like this something I was interested in. Is there any way we can explore that? Like if someone if a party member asks me that, that's immediately where I'm like, stop, like chill, wait, did I just like totally miss what my party members might have been interested in?
Kind of like being on a bullet train to an extent.
Yeah, because I'm so like,
I'm using this train example for some reason. I don't know why. It works.
Working. But yeah, exactly. If your train's going so fast and you never worry about what the passengers want to look at, then you're never going to be able to stop and let them see. Yeah. You're never going to let your players explore if you're so hyper focused on the plot. And same thing for players. It's really for us as DMs to get kind of caught up in it, because especially when. And I think that kind of speaks to when I feel like campaigns are good, is when I'm so invested that I kind of want to just keep going. Yeah. But at the same time, like, just let your DM know, and DMs let your players know, and ask them, are you guys interested in downtime? Because there's also a good chance they say no. They say, yo, we wanna get on to the next fight. Like, we just talked to this court.
They want the high octane.
War.
Yeah,
like we're just trying to go.
They want to continue with the main plot. Sometimes that's fine. That's great sometimes, because you as the DM sometimes want to do that dip back into the main story after taking like a big downtime break. Yep. And it's nice. It's always that change of pace and shift into gear and shifting down, I guess, is beneficial for you both as a DM and as for players to not get like tired of a certain style of play.
Right. No, yeah.
I feel like that's always a good just take a breath, and sometimes you take a breath, sometimes you dive in, sometimes you want to dive in.
Yeah, and I guess this is a good way to like circle back to the point that we started with, was like which games does this fit for? If you're running something that's super high octane where they're just trying to get from point A to point B, barrel campaign, through, totally cool. Don't use downtime; it's not necessary. Yeah, and again, that also serves a certain style of DMing. If you don't like fleshing out backstory, if your whole campaign is you only wrote out
grinder dungeon
one
crawl,
guild. And it's more for flavor text than it is for the actual plot or existence of the world.
It's the fighter bad guy guild.
Right. You you stick an adjective and then a body part. Boom. You have a guild. That is who
the bloody hands.
Is.
I'm telling you. Yeah. No. The black mask. The black mask. Yeah.
Yeah. The black mask. The broken foot. I don't know. Literally whatever. So if it's for like flavor text purposes, like
the green eyes.
The green eyes. Fuck downtime. If downtime doesn't work for you, don't use it.
Crying feet.
It is just the crying feet. The sweaty hands. The
knees are the weak knees.
The hands of catching.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't you got a little off track there.
Yeah.
Because it really is that easy. Being a DM is that easy. We just made 7 different guilds. Take anyone.
You're welcome.
Except the crying.
Someone clip
eyes.
that. Yeah.
Crying eyes is too on the nose. Don't use it.
Yeah. Crying eyes. Yeah. The crying nose.
The crying nose. That's big brain.
Back to the voice.
Yeah. But other uses, because this one might be a little shorter, by the way, because we did very little prep for this one. Yeah. But other interesting uses, I did want to mention this because this is something that I don't see often and that I don't often utilize in my games, but I wish I would more. With extended time skips, um, extended time skips are really cool. Um, and this is something that I intend to do in the future is for like dynamic storytelling.
Yeah,
And what I mean by that
for
is,
sure.
um, you can, in the middle of a campaign, you can very much say the heroes went off and just kind of did their own thing for a little bit. And you can use like an extended period of what you call downtime to just kind of talk about what ended up developing in the world.
Yeah,
So like I guess to be more specific, if characters completed like a 5 to 10 session, that's pretty hefty.
yeah,
We'll say like a 3 to 5 session arc, right,
yeah,
where something major happened. Maybe the characters just want to say we're gonna back up and see what happens in the world,
yeah,
and you get a chance there as a DM to utilize that downtime, kind of dynamically in your world. So you
yeah.
can say, oh, you guys want to step back for 2 weeks to a month. All right, let's start thinking about what are the actual repercussions of what happened, what the party did.
No, for
Was
sure.
it good? Was it bad? If it was inherently good, what were the bad things that came from it? Like
Yes.
peripheral, I guess like occurrences. Because I've thought about using this a lot, but I feel like
It's
my
used in games a
downtime
decent
is
amount.
filled in. I wish I would see it in more in games because
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of times the only
like the Telltale
gauge,
games, you know.
yeah,
You get
that's
those,
a great
yeah.
point. It's like it's kind of hard to gauge the real impact of what a campaign is doing or what a group of
Yeah,
party members
that is
just
true.
did.
How powerful you are, because when you're
Exactly.
fighting like like insurmountable like odds and like these super buff enemies, you forget sometimes that you are still can sneeze on an average commoner and they die.
Yeah, right.
You know.
Literally, like as a party, you should feel powerful, but sometimes in terms of storytelling, it's kind of back to the tunnel
Weird,
vision
yeah.
thing, right? Like
Aesthetics
you
and
only
yeah.
know that you killed an ogre and that you saved a village. Like cool, like all right.
We get the money.
But
Where's
it's
the money?
yeah, where's the money? And then you get paid, and then that's it. But it's a lot more interesting
For sure.
to use that as an example. It's like, oh, this village prospered. Unfortunately, that means that because the village has prospered, that old guild of bandits that used to mess with it and stop because the ogre showed up is now back.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You have a brand new point of conflict. That was a little dark. I could have said they lived happily ever after, and but like
That's
you
your
want conflict.
that's
You
your
want
way of
conflict in your
storytelling.
campaigns,
I feel yeah.
Or like I
Yeah.
guess like maybe this town you saved ended up in a mining boom, and now there is a very powerful bladesmith that resides there.
Yeah, no, you moved into
Yeah,
town.
exactly.
You know?
That's like almost that does get used in RPGs a lot. Where you
Yes.
save the town and then suddenly you have an
Well, that's
NPC
usually for base
accessed.
development and like kind of
Yeah.
I guess hometown. I remember I think Assassin's Creed 3 did that a bunch. With you had your whole like homestead that
Yeah.
you like sent resources to, and
Mhm.
you added new NPCs.
Yeah.
I feel like a good example of like just having that kind of impact stuff is like an example, for instance, with like a plague that's like
Mhm.
like has a city in its grips, and the people are dying, and you have the ambient music, plague city coughing, 24-hour like running during the whole game, right?
Mhm.
And then you like have the players, they find the issue, they are able to find the source of this plague and eliminate it. Doing that, then you can get the whole kind of, you're able to show them this place wasn't horrible and a nightmare the whole time. The skies weren't always black with the
Right.
fumes of corpse,
Right.
like burnt corpses. There weren't always people coughing at every corner and people mourning their like loved ones every day. And once you lift that plague, and can have the players during downtime, be like, we'd like to spend our downtime here. Could we spend a couple like months or like weeks helping the people recover?
Right.
Could we help with that stuff? And being able to narrate that, you can show the players, yes, you eliminating this like level like CR6 or CR8 like monster that caused the plague. Although that was just a simple balance encounter, your your actions have cured, helped remove the source of this plague, which allowed people to actually survive. And you can see the skies are blue, people are walking around. That one NPC that's helped you along that was like almost dying, maybe his leg is like amputated because of like it went like gangrenous or something, and they kind of come back, and they're this valuable NPC
Right.
to help you as a party. And it's a way of showing the he kind of, oh yeah, this thing was in my family, I can't use it anymore because of the leg, but
Mhm.
thanks for anyway, and he hands you this ancestral sword that's like a flame tongue, or something, and you can do so much from like that downtime and showing the players that you had an impact, you have an award, you have a reward, but you also have the moral thing of helping people, which depending on the party, you're playing like a group of like unhinged misfits, for instance, like they're not gonna like really be that much into it, but they might enjoy it still.
Yeah.
Like as people, like even though the character might be like, oh whatever, the person themselves is like, oh fuck yeah,
And then they might end up identifying
exactly
with, where they helped, and that ends up being part of the character's identity.
For sure. No, it adds decent points of plot development when you show people how they affect the world. It does help them, like realize how impactful their stuff is, even with accidentally killing an NPC. Like using like a cantrip like Thorn Whip at a high level, you cast that, you crit, you kill the person you're trying to Thorn Whip, even though you're trying to literally kind of just grab. You wanted to use Thorn Whip for its grapple effect and like to pull people in, right. But accidentally you deal so much damage they just die from the contact. And right. You then show them, wow, you're that powerful that one cantrip from you can kill an average person with the right damage dice.
Right.
Now you have to deal with this dead body. Now, yeah.
And then now you have an entire other dilemma on your
exactly.
So I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's really valuable, and I'd like to use it. I intend to use it more in my games because
it's fun.
I realized that like you mentioned how like it ties in. I initially started the example by saying, okay, the players step back, but they need not necessarily step back. They might, as you said, they might be the ones that are like after they finish this arc and after they they helped from a very D&D session perspective. Now they're going to help from exactly. Now they're going to help from a more zoomed out perspective of like, all right, like we liberated this place. Their government's in shambles. Their economy is in shambles. Their actual infrastructure is in shambles.
There's no, like all the elders are dead. There's no food here. We have, like a simple druid spell, Goodberry, can save a couple lives.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a great use of it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna roll, I think, into our last topic. Rewording it a little bit here, but did want to chat a little bit about keeping players engaged during downtime.
Yeah.
And
that's an issue. That's a worry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best context that I think this fits in is because again we've talked about how different campaigns and different parties benefit from it differently. So in terms of keeping players engaged during downtime, I think it's important to remember that there's more than just the one player that is interested in a side plot.
Yes. I agree.
So in terms of keeping your whole party engaged, I think that is actually a very fair challenge.
No, there's
when you have, for example, in your games, when you have someone that's very interested in a side plot and like a couple of other characters that don't actually want or intend to do a lot during a downtime, how do you kind of navigate that issue?
I guess that is a very decent issue, and I'm not sure if I personally have mastered or have been fully capable of doing so. Sometimes you forget, sometimes you're like, oh, this downtime thing is so fun and stuff, but then you're like, some players are like, I want more combat.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, and then you fair enough, you want more combat. That is a valid thing, having that downtime and having that kind of keeping everyone engaged is I feel like it was similar approach to how you do for like RP, I would say.
Okay.
To the degree that sometimes like you gotta make sure that you're putting the spotlight on the people who enjoy doing stuff, and you gotta make sure that the people who aren't doing stuff or just listening are still engaged by having them do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's, maybe it can just come to maybe cutting the downtime a bit shorter than what you planned for, because you realize some people are getting bored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like there's always a way of the easiest solution is providing the bored players with an opportunity to do stuff, because sometimes they might not know that they can do a thing.
Right.
Like sometimes they're just restrained by what can be said on like in Xanathar's guide in terms of downtime, and they didn't realize you can do other stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to, you can just talk to this NPC and maybe learn more about the world if you're an amnesiac, or to that degree. Or sometimes you just you don't do anything, and that's good for you. You just read a book, you know. And it depends on giving the players opportunities and kind of opening up that area is also very good to keep people who might not be commonly engaged by it, because some people, as soon as you see downtime, they know exactly what they want to do. The wizard wants to do the spell books, but sometimes the fighter's not sure. He has no. Maybe you open up and say, if you want to look around for stuff, you might find this blacksmith
Yeah.
who has the set of armor that's set to be really good for your subclass. You know,
Yeah.
like if you're a cavalier, this like griffin set of armor that's set to allow you to summon a griffin on like once per dawn or something.
Right.
And like having that benefit and giving that opportunity to them, sometimes you gotta push or maybe work extra hard to make sure someone feels engaged, and that's valid because some people don't realize how fun downtime can be.
Yeah.
And there's always the other argument of sometimes you got to realize downtime's not meant for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
For sure.
That's very fair.
So one strategy that I like to utilize, and again, this is kind of going back to the different dynamics.
Yeah.
That
listeners versus active players.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I know that there is like a downtime coming up where I know some of my more active players are going to utilize it, I'll talk to them beforehand or kind of encourage it during.
Yeah.
To
See
try
what they
and
want.
get them to. Well, what I do is I try and rope in the other players.
Oh, okay.
So for example.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Find a way to make it relate. So like if they say like, hey, maybe like in the example like the wizard really wants to like go capture some new spell, and they're like, hey, the library is the way to the library I heard is kind of dangerous. Maybe he'll try and rope in the fighter to be like,
exactly.
Hey, I was wondering if you could help me out. I'm not entirely confident that I'll make it from point A to point B. Would you mind coming with me?
Exactly. Or the opposite with like an Eldritch Knight wanting to get into more Arcana stuff. He talks to the wizard in the party to get him an in to the to the nearby college.
Yeah.
You can
I
agree.
I think the one caveat when you do that though is make sure that you're prepared to sprinkle a little bit of intrigue for the one that's getting in. So like if I'm getting the fighter to just follow the wizard, and the wizard's just gonna get to the library and like he's just gonna read, and the fighter's got jack shit to do.
Just sitting on his
maybe the fighter shows up at the library and he sees someone that seems way over armored and way more and has way more weapons than one probably should in a library.
Like an Eldritch Knight.
Yeah, like an Eldritch Knight, exactly.
Exactly.
Like maybe perusing through the books, but you can see he's like loaded. Like he's got blades on his blades.
He's like deadlifting like 50 tomes of Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. Or
or maybe someone they know. That's always a good one. Someone that they know, like they're at the library
RP
and they see
backstory stuff,
or they see like a tunic or like a style of clothing that they recognize from a mercenary group
callback to some group, or maybe they found a book on the history of a mercenary group that they're interested in. That's always a really good thing because you always have or even I guess you can do it like if someone wants to get proficiency in nature, you have the ranger go along with them, and you can have some role playing and talking between those two people.
Right.
That's also a good way of hook to just get players to RP with each other.
Yeah.
Is have the downtime be you might need the help of this druid to help you get your like survival proficiency or nature proficiency, and maybe you can mention give the players something to talk about.
Right.
Maybe you say, oh yeah, druid, you know how to track this thing because it's from your homeland and stuff, and maybe by you mentioning that, the other player sees the opportunity to ask about that.
Right.
And
I think that's a good way for them to get engaged in potential downtime.
Mesh people together.
Maybe this time, and it can even happen right then, right? They might be like, all right, now I have something I'm interested in from piggybacking off of someone's downtime. Hey, can I explore this?
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll bring the wizard along, or whoever they were.
Duos and pairs really work well, or even trios to an extent.
Yeah, having someone in the party that's willing to say, let's split up, instead of everyone go their separate ways. Like, hey, you guys should stick together. Make sure you don't get lost. Buddy system. Buddy system's a great way to do that.
Yes. Also for additional opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. Like if they end up if the fighter was just tagging along at the library and then they find something that interests them, then now the wizard maybe is like, oh, I'm interested in I want to see where this goes. It can even happen in that moment, in that same downtime, or maybe they're like, I have something to think about now. Maybe after we get our next round of downtime, or maybe when we get our next round of downtime, I'm going to utilize it to go look for that myself.
Yeah, honestly, I think we touched on this to an extent, but I do want to mention at some point of downtime and stuff also gives you very good opportunity to mesh old players with like newer players who might be like recently hopping into a game. Is that you have that downtime, for instance, maybe a couple of like the players who are notorious for wanting to do crime and like break into places and do heists, they're gonna do their like sub-annual like heist
Right.
during their downtime, and then you mention, oh yeah, you notice after casing out this building that a particular party member's skills may be very beneficial in getting through this like almost impenetrable like part of the like thing.
Right.
Maybe you have a changeling in the party now, so you have this. Oh yeah, the easiest way of getting through this place will most likely be like maybe asking your changeling party member to assist you in impersonating a person.
Right.
Like having that kind of give like it really gives you a way of kind of knitting and kind of like meshing people together in a way that promotes getting players, and I guess both as a character and as a player, comfortable talking to each other more, especially for like recent campaigns.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I also, now that you mentioned that, something interesting that you can kind of do. This has only really worked once, but it was also the only time I really tried it.
You never know it could work again.
Yeah, but it was basically one of the party members had a very unique set of skills that were like they didn't want
a particular set of
skills. But basically they didn't want to reveal them to the party until it came up, is kind of how
until they needed to.
To me. And so during one of the downtimes, they were in that tag along situation, and something happened, and literally the only way to get out of their bind was for them to reveal a small sprinkle of their skills. And then the other party member was like, "What the hell? Since when can you do that shit?"
Yeah. Like I may like kind of you have the party where like it's kind of a low key deal, but I am a master forge master, and I can make replica dollar bills and coins very easily, and
I don't like to talk about it, but I'm kind of the best in the world at this.
No, which is the thing. It's very much a funny trope, but it works really well sometimes. It's the anime trope of, oh yeah, this like low key side character turns out to be like this master chef who's actually like royalty, or like the royalty thing.
Pushes up glasses. I'm actually an angel.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Or you can even have the easiest thing of have this like the party rogue be like, oh yeah, oh you're facing issues with this royal family, huh? I hope they don't see me and recognize me as being their like long lost sibling.
Escaped sibling trope.
Or just escaped noble trope is like one of those things where like, oh geez, I guess I can flex my like noble
royalty.
credit here and get y'all out of jail easily.
Suddenly the character changes his accent and posture.
Yeah.
Shaves and he's just like actually royalty all of a sudden.
He's like, yeah, no, that stuff can be very fun, and like also could be like really cool moments, in general. It's just I would say also Downtime is really good point to introduce like new players to the game, because it's less like action, and introduce them on a side quest. You know, it's a really good way, because like sometimes it's hard to fit new players or new joins into a game when you're in the middle of going through this dungeon sewer. And you're the only thing around you, the only thing you see that moves is things that want to kill you or things that want to eat you, either whichever comes first, I guess. Right. But like it's hard to fit it's hard to fit a nice character, a nice like friendly NPC, like PC new join into the party during that situation, where Downtime can be like, oh yeah, you go on the side quest to go to the blacksmith guild and you fit in the new NPC or the new PC, I mean, to be in that guild, and it works out nice.
Yeah,
it's a low pressure way of adding people.
Definitely. So yeah, going back to the original question, I guess this is actually something that's pretty difficult to address. Is like if you have some people who are engaged in the downtime and other people that aren't, you do have to play that sort of balancing act. So we kind of went deep into one strategy that I like to use, which is making them tag along.
Yeah.
But
which
just in general,
effective.
If you're getting a situation like that, that is where I feel it is, at least for me personally, because I like rewarding players that are active.
Yes.
But I also don't want, if they're
punish
active during the
being,
game and then they don't want to be active during the downtime, I'm not going to punish them when
exactly.
other people want to be active. So I'd say it's a balancing act. If it seems like only a couple of players are interested in doing something with, a side quest or a campaign, I'd say number one, keep it brief would be my first suggestion. Don't dig into it so much that you take an entire session just for the downtime of one character to go do whatever. And my second option, and this is probably what I've used the most, beyond the tag along thing, is just drive back to the main plot.
Yes.
So start it as a side plot for that specific character,
pull the people back,
and then immediately at the end there's a twist, and it's like, yo, that person that you were like, this rabbit hole you were going down, that rabbit hole led straight to the
big
top
bad
of the mountain that you were trying to get to the whole time. That is my other
It's a
strategy.
pretty good way of doing it.
It's a bit of a cop out, but again, you're the DM. You can
You have the right
always
to do
just
so.
send them
Yeah.
right back to the.
As
to
long
the
as everyone's
story.
okay with it, you know,
Yeah.
like do it, you know.
So yeah, and I like to use that especially if there's like one thread that's like people are following. If there's like one or two characters that are interested in actually following a side plot thread,
Oh yeah.
that or thread, sorry, not threat, threat too sometimes.
Sometimes you never know.
Then let them follow it and just keep it somewhat brief so that once they reach the end point of what they were kind of looking for, it now concerns the whole party, not just like the one person.
That's a really good way of doing it, honestly.
That's what I like.
I do agree. That is a pretty like smart way of doing it. I would say another key thing, and I feel like it's almost our, I think the second time we mentioned that this like session, but talk to your players and make sure double check if they're okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, be clear with them and be like, hey, are y'all enjoying this downtime?
Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy this? You know, it's a very key thing. And just making sure that everyone's having fun, and you know, like address that issue as it arises, and be like, hey, just generally talk to the party. Do y'all, you know, do y'all want downtime? I can fit downtime in if y'all want to, and you know, just double check. You know, it's always good to talk out of game. You know, two players. It's you know, it might feel awkward at times, but it works.
Yeah, definitely. Talk to your players, talk to your DMs. I think that's probably like the most valuable use of it too is I'm going to mention this for DMs. Downtime is probably your best defense against outright derailment because downtime is kind of when you let them say,
your excuse for derailment.
You want to break my shit, do it now. Don't break it while I'm trying to like walk you guys through an interesting plot point. Just do it now, and that is what I think is like important. Right?
Don't spend 3 hours in the beach when you're trying to fight this like Avengers level threat.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You can do that during your downtime. You're more than free to do so.
Yeah. So be mindful of where your story is, where your players are, and if you notice that players are getting antsy to explore your world versus whatever plot point you're on, give them that opportunity. And again, a lot of the times it comes to reading the room. Sometimes you start the downtime and you thought people were going to be really active, and then people aren't really about it. Fuck it, end the downtime and keep moving.
It's okay.
Learn to be adaptive. But yeah, I think
you gotta take it in stride
sometimes. Yeah, for sure. So I think downtime is a great tool, and I think that's what this should really be a summary of. Is like, it is a tool in your toolbox. Use it if you want to, and if you're gonna use it, make sure that while you're utilizing it. First of all, like experiment with different things because there's a lot of different ways to use it, but also be mindful of how your party is reacting to it. And if you find that it isn't working, you can always just move on. That is kind of the beauty of D&D and being a DM is that you can just kind of scooch forward.
You are exactly. You have the reins. You have control over it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with that being said, I think we're going to wrap up this episode. But thanks to everyone who was able to join us and hop in.
Yes. And everyone watching the VODs.
Yes. Much appreciated.
Much appreciated.
Remember that these will stick around for a bit. So, and hopefully we'll be getting them up on.
By next week, I should be. I'm gonna probably start working on it either today or tomorrow to have everything like set up and uploaded, and hopefully we will be posting about. And I'll link the YouTube when we have everything set up in both the Twitch, and we'll mention it on the See You Boulder D&D Discord.
Yeah. So hop in the Discord if you aren't already. We will announce next week's a little bit earlier so that we have a little bit more time for people
I will remember, hopefully.
Submit community questions. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, see ya.